What if I told you that performing at the Super Bowl can be more about exposure than a paycheck? It sounds hard to believe, especially considering the millions watching. Yet, every year top artists willingly step into the spotlight for one of the biggest stages in the world. But why? Let's dig deep and uncover the hidden reasons why this iconic halftime show has an irresistible allure that keeps musicians coming back, even when the odds are stacked against them. The Super Bowl isn't just a football game. It's a cultural spectacle that commands the attention of millions across the globe. The atmosphere is electric, with fans buzzing in anticipation, making it a dream stage for any artist. One of the biggest draws for performers is the sheer audience size. With over 100 million viewers tuning in, the halftime show reaches a vast and diverse demographic, spanning age groups, interests, and even international borders. This unparalleled exposure is a ticket to instant fame. The Super Bowl has transcended sports to become a cultural phenomenon, influencing everything from fashion to advertising. It's a night where music meets sports, showcasing performances that are often just as anticipated as the game itself. This crossover brings a unique energy that captivates audiences. With the immense media frenzy that surrounds the event, artists find themselves at the center of attention. Every move they make is magnified, providing them with extensive coverage that boosts their visibility beyond the realms of typical music showcases. Additionally, artists have a golden opportunity to debut new music during their halftime moments. It's a strategic move to hook new fans and create buzz, which is often followed by a surge in music sales and streaming. Some acts witness not just a temporary spike, but a long-lasting impact on their careers. Let's not forget the way the Super Bowl has helped revitalize careers. Legendary artists may lean on this platform for resurgence, introducing themselves to a new generation while re-engaging longtime fans. Their performances can ignite nostalgia, bringing familiar hits back to the forefront. Ultimately, what makes the Super Bowl's appeal so captivating is that it offers a unique and historic opportunity to connect with millions. For performers, it's about more than just music. It's about seizing a moment on one of the world's grandest stages. With all that in mind, who wouldn't want to be part of this unforgettable experience? The Black Eyed Peas, 2011, a high-tech mess with audio failures. The 2011 Super Bowl halftime show was supposed to be a high-energy spectacle, with the Black Eyed Peas headlining one of the most anticipated performances of the year. Known for their electrifying hits like I Got a Feeling, Boom Boom Pow, and Where's the Love, the group aimed to bring a futuristic, LED-powered visual experience to the halftime stage. With guest appearances from Slash of Guns N' Roses and Usher, expectations were sky-high. However, instead of delivering a career-defining performance, technical issues and poor vocal execution turned the show into a disaster. From the very start, major audio problems plagued the performance. Microphones malfunctioned, making vocals sound muffled and off-key. The sound mix was unbalanced, causing the music and vocals to feel disconnected rather than cohesive. Fergie's vocals came under heavy criticism, especially during her duet with Slash on Sweet Child O' Mine, which many considered off-key and out of place. While the staging was visually stunning, the technical mishaps quickly overshadowed the production value. Audience reactions were brutal. Fans at the stadium struggled to hear the performance properly, leading to widespread disappointment. Social media exploded with criticism, with many calling it one of the worst halftime shows in Super Bowl history. Some Twitter users even joked that the Black Eyed Peas sounded like they were singing through a walkie-talkie. Rolling Stone magazine rated the performance a dismal February 10th, branding it a failure in both technology and live singing. The collaboration with Slash felt awkward and lacked chemistry, while Usher's brief appearance was seen as the only redeeming moment in an otherwise chaotic show. The performance was considered a failure due to severe technical issues that ruined the audio quality, poor live vocals, particularly from Fergie, and an overall visually impressive but sonically disastrous show. Guest appearances felt disjointed rather than enhancing the performance, and harsh criticism from both audiences and critics cemented its place as one of the worst Super Bowl halftime shows ever. The Black Eyed Peas had the opportunity to create a spectacular halftime moment, but instead delivered a messy, poorly executed performance marred by technical failures. This show became a cautionary tale on how even the biggest pop acts can fall flat if the execution isn't flawless. Maroon 5's Super Bowl halftime show, a performance overshadowed by controversy. In 2019, Maroon 5 stepped onto one of the biggest stages in the world, the Super Bowl halftime show. But instead of a triumphant moment, they found themselves at the center of one of the most polarizing performances in Super Bowl history. What should have been a career-defining spectacle quickly became a point of contention, stirring up debates about music, activism, and the NFL's ongoing controversies. The backdrop for this performance was far from celebratory. With Atlanta, a city known for its rich musical heritage, as the host, there was an expectation that the halftime show would honor its deep-rooted influence in hip-hop and R&B. However, the excitement of the event was heavily overshadowed by the NFL's treatment of Colin Kaepernick, whose silent protest against racial injustice had sparked a nationwide movement. Many felt that Kaepernick had been effectively blackballed from the league, and activists called on artists to boycott the Super Bowl as a statement against the NFL's stance on social justice. Despite the growing pressure, Maroon 5 chose to perform, a decision that was met with immediate backlash. Critics and fans questioned why the band would align with the NFL at a time when other artists, such as Rihanna and Cardi B, had publicly refused to take part in solidarity with Kaepernick. Social justice advocates viewed the performance as a betrayal, while others saw it as an opportunity for the band to make a statement. But when the halftime show finally arrived, it failed to meet expectations in more ways than one. The performance itself, featuring hits like Sugar and Girls Like You, was technically polished but felt disconnected. Maroon 5, known for their radio-friendly pop rock sound, struggled to engage with the audience on an emotional level. While frontman Adam Levine delivered his usual high-energy vocals, the overall show lacked the excitement and innovation expected from a Super Bowl performance. Rather than capitalizing on the moment to make a bold artistic or social statement, the band played it safe. Too safe for an event already mired in controversy. In an attempt to add excitement, Maroon 5 brought out Travis Scott and Big Boi as guest performers. While Big Boi's presence gave a nod to Atlanta's music scene, it wasn't enough to turn the tide of criticism. Many felt that the show lacked cohesion, as the guest appearances felt more like disjointed additions rather than meaningful collaborations. Instead of creating a moment that resonated, the performance ended up feeling uninspired and, for many, forgettable. The aftermath of the show reflected the divided opinions surrounding it. Some fans appreciated the visual spectacle and nostalgia, while others blasted the band for failing to acknowledge the social issues surrounding the event. Social media erupted with discussions, with many questioning whether music and activism can truly coexist on such a massive stage. The performance wasn't just about music, it had become a symbol of a larger debate about responsibility, ethics, and the power of celebrity in political discourse. Maroon 5's Super Bowl halftime show will be remembered not for its musical brilliance, but for its controversy. It remains a stark reminder that entertainment and activism are more intertwined than ever, and that sometimes, staying silent can speak louder than words. As fans and critics continue to dissect the performance, the question lingers: should artists use their platforms to make a stand, or should music remain separate from politics? Coldplay's Super Bowl halftime show, a headliner overshadowed. The 2016 Super Bowl halftime show was highly anticipated, with Coldplay set to take center stage. As one of the biggest bands in the world, known for their emotionally charged anthems like Viva La Vida, Fix You, and Adventure of a Lifetime, many expected a performance filled with powerful musical moments. However, despite their immense popularity and catalog of hits, Coldplay's halftime show ended up feeling surprisingly underwhelming. One of the biggest criticisms of their performance was its lack of energy. Super Bowl halftime shows are known for their electrifying presence, with past headliners like Beyoncé, Bruno Mars, and Madonna delivering high-octane performances filled with choreography, dramatic visuals, and commanding stage presence. Coldplay, however, took a much more mellow and sentimental approach, which didn't quite fit the high-energy atmosphere of the Super Bowl. While their music is stadium-friendly in the sense that it unites large crowds, it lacked the explosive moments that a halftime show typically demands. Chris Martin, despite his enthusiasm, struggled to engage the audience in a way that past performers had effortlessly done. Perhaps realizing this potential issue, the show's producers brought in guest performers Beyoncé and Bruno Mars to help elevate the performance. While both artists undeniably brought charisma and energy, their presence ultimately outshined Coldplay, making it feel as though the band was a secondary act in their own headlining show. When Beyoncé performed Formation with a powerful and politically charged presence, and Bruno Mars delivered his signature dynamic stage persona, it became clear that they were the true highlights of the night. Coldplay, in comparison, faded into the background, making the entire performance feel somewhat disjointed. Another factor that contributed to the lackluster reception was the overall production design. Unlike previous years, where halftime shows featured elaborate stage sets, pyrotechnics, and complex choreography, Coldplay's stage was bright and colorful but lacked the visual spectacle audiences had come to expect. Their use of vibrant flowers and rainbow-colored visuals created an uplifting mood, but it wasn't enough to compensate for the absence of a truly captivating moment that would leave a lasting impact. While Coldplay's performance was not necessarily bad, it simply did not meet the high bar set by previous Super Bowl halftime shows. It felt more like a well-produced stadium concert rather than a once-in-a-lifetime performance designed for a global audience. The energy never quite peaked, and by the time the show ended, many viewers were left feeling that the real stars of the night had been the guest performers rather than the headlining act. This halftime show demonstrated that while Coldplay is an incredibly talented and beloved band, their style did not translate well into the high-stakes, high-intensity environment of the Super Bowl. Katy Perry's Super Bowl halftime show, a visual spectacle with vocal inconsistencies. The 2015 Super Bowl halftime show featuring Katy Perry was nothing short of a visual extravaganza, filled with larger-than-life props, dazzling costumes, and viral moments. From her dramatic entrance on a giant golden mechanical lion during Roar to the now infamous dancing sharks in Teenage Dream, the performance delivered in terms of entertainment value. The show was a feast for the eyes, showcasing Perry's signature bold and playful aesthetic, making it one of the most meme-worthy halftime performances of all time. However, while the visuals were undeniably impressive, the performance suffered from noticeable vocal inconsistencies, making it a classic case of style over substance. One of the biggest criticisms of the performance was Perry's inconsistent live vocals. While she has never been known for powerhouse vocals, the Super Bowl is a stage where artists are expected to bring their absolute best. Throughout the performance, her singing often sounded flat and strained, lacking the power needed to match the grandiosity of the production. In contrast, guest performers Lenny Kravitz and Missy Elliott injected much-needed energy into the show, with Missy's electrifying medley of Get Your Freak On and Work It briefly stealing the spotlight from Perry. Many fans felt that her guest stars outperformed her, highlighting the gap between her elaborate staging and her actual vocal delivery. Another major issue was the disconnect between the theatrical elements and the music itself. While the halftime show is known for its over-the-top production, there needs to be a balance between spectacle and musical performance. In Perry's case, the larger-than-life visuals often felt disproportionate to the emotional intensity of the songs. For instance, her performance of Firework while flying across the stadium on a shooting star was visually stunning. But her weaker vocal execution made the moment feel somewhat hollow rather than triumphant. Despite these criticisms, Katy Perry's halftime show was still a success in terms of entertainment value and cultural impact. It became one of the most watched halftime performances of all time, and elements like the "Left Shark" meme cemented its place in pop culture history. However, when compared to other legendary halftime shows, it lacked the vocal strength and authenticity that make a performance truly unforgettable. Perry's show proved that while visuals can create a spectacle, strong vocals and musical presence are just as essential in delivering a halftime show that stands the test of time. Justin Timberlake's 2018 Super Bowl halftime show, a forgettable performance overshadowed by the past. When Justin Timberlake was announced as the headliner for the 2018 Super Bowl halftime show, expectations were high. As a seasoned performer with a strong catalog of hits, including Sexy Back, Cry Me a River, and Can't Stop the Feeling, Timberlake had the charisma and stage presence to deliver an electrifying show. However, despite his undeniable star power, the performance was widely regarded as underwhelming and forgettable, failing to deliver the high-energy spectacle that audiences have come to expect from the Super Bowl. One of the biggest issues with Timberlake's performance was the lack of excitement and dynamic moments. The show opened with him performing Filthy in a dimly lit club-like setting, which immediately felt low energy for such a grand stage. Unlike previous halftime shows that featured elaborate stage designs and larger-than-life moments, Timberlake's set felt surprisingly minimalistic, relying more on LED screens than creative production. His choreography, while smooth, never built up to a peak moment that truly engaged the audience. Adding to the mixed reception was the absence of any guest performers. Super Bowl halftime shows often thrive on collaboration, with surprise appearances adding an extra level of excitement. Timberlake, however, chose to go solo, a decision that backfired, as it made the show feel one-dimensional and lacking in variety. Many fans hoped for an NSYNC reunion, or at least a high-profile guest, but those expectations were never met, leaving a sense of missed opportunity. Beyond the lackluster performance, lingering shadows of past controversies loomed large over Timberlake's return to the Super Bowl stage. His infamous 2004 halftime performance with Janet Jackson, where the wardrobe malfunction scandal unfolded, was still fresh in many people's minds. Timberlake never addressed the controversy or acknowledged Jackson, which led to renewed backlash. Many felt that while Janet Jackson had suffered the brunt of the criticism in 2004, Timberlake had been given a free pass, and his return to the Super Bowl without any reference to the incident felt tone-deaf. One of the most talked-about moments of his performance was his tribute to Prince, projected onto a giant screen. Given that the show was in Minnesota, where Prince was a legendary figure, it seemed like an appropriate nod. However, fans of Prince criticized it, pointing out that the late musician had publicly spoken against the use of holograms or posthumous digital tributes. The execution of this moment felt awkward and forced, adding to the overall disconnect between Timberlake's performance and the audience's expectations. Despite its flaws, Timberlake's halftime show wasn't a complete disaster. His vocals were solid, and his finale with "Can't Stop the Feeling" was lively, even if it didn't quite redeem the show. However, when compared to past halftime performances, it lacked energy, spectacle, and a defining moment that made it stand out. Instead of delivering an unforgettable Super Bowl experience, Timberlake's performance felt safe, uninspired, and overshadowed by unresolved controversies. In the end, What should have been a triumphant return for the pop star ended up being one of the most forgettable halftime shows in recent history. The Backstreet Boys' 2001 Super Bowl halftime show, a performance that faded into the background. The Backstreet Boys were at the peak of their popularity in the early 2000s, dominating the charts with hits like I Want It That Way and Larger Than Life. As one of the biggest boy bands in the world, many expected their 2001 Super Bowl halftime show performance to be a show-stopping moment filled with high-energy choreography, iconic harmonies, and fan-favorite anthems. However, their appearance at the Super Bowl was surprisingly underwhelming, failing to leave a lasting impact against the backdrop of the grand spectacles that had defined past halftime shows. One of the main reasons their performance fell flat was its lack of spectacle. Unlike the theatrical production of previous Super Bowl halftime shows, such as Michael Jackson's legendary 1993 performance or even the elaborate sets of later shows, the Backstreet Boys set lacked visual excitement and showmanship. Their performance felt more like a traditional concert appearance rather than a high-energy, once-in-a-lifetime event that millions were tuning in to watch. The staging was relatively simple, and their song selection didn't maximize the kind of excitement the Super Bowl halftime stage demands. Another factor that contributed to the lackluster reception was the contrast between nostalgia and reality. While many fans had grown up with the Backstreet Boys and cherished their music, the Super Bowl audience was much broader, consisting of viewers who might not have been as invested in the boy band craze. The high-energy, rock-infused performances that had come before them made their more mellow, pop-heavy approach feel out of place in an event that thrives on explosive entertainment. Compared to the high-adrenaline performances Super Bowl viewers were used to, the Backstreet Boys show felt tame and forgettable. The audience's reaction was polite, but unenthusiastic. While their core fanbase appreciated the performance for its nostalgic value, many casual viewers found it to be uninspired and lacking the wow factor expected from a Super Bowl halftime show. This wasn't helped by the fact that their performance was overshadowed by the game's national anthem, which they also performed before kickoff. With both appearances blending together, their presence at the event didn't feel as significant as it should have been. Ultimately, the Backstreet Boys' Super Bowl performance failed to make an impact, not because they lacked talent, but because it didn't live up to the scale and spectacle expected from the event. Their set felt like a regular concert rather than a defining moment in halftime show history, and as a result, their performance remains one of the more forgettable ones in Super Bowl history. Instead of being a showcase of their global pop dominance, it became a reminder that even the biggest acts can fade into the background when the stakes are as high as the Super Bowl halftime stage. New Kids on the Block's 1991 Super Bowl halftime show, a performance that felt out of place. By 1991, New Kids on the Block had already started to see a decline in their massive popularity. Just a few years prior, they had been one of the biggest boy bands in the world, selling out stadiums and topping the charts with hits like Step by Step and You Got It, The Right Stuff. However, by the time they took the stage at the Super Bowl 25 halftime show, their reign over pop music was fading. Unfortunately, their performance that night reflected this shift, making it one of the most out-of-touch and forgettable halftime shows in Super Bowl history. One of the biggest criticisms of their performance was its lack of relevance and energy, especially in comparison to the high-stakes nature of the event itself. The Super Bowl is a celebration of athleticism, competition, and spectacle, with halftime shows expected to match that intensity. However, instead of an electrifying performance filled with energy and excitement, New Kids on the Block delivered a Disney-themed halftime show titled It's a Small World Salute, designed to entertain children rather than the massive, football-loving audience. The set included costumed Disney characters, a choir of children, and sentimental ballads, which felt completely disconnected from the electric, adrenaline-fueled atmosphere of the Super Bowl. Another major issue was the band's dwindling popularity at the time. While they were still well known, their influence was not as strong as it had been just a year or two earlier. The boy band craze was beginning to fade, and their appeal wasn't as universal as other halftime performers who had catered to a broader audience. This created a mismatch between the event and the entertainment, making their performance feel outdated and misaligned with the Super Bowl's energy. Adding to the issues was the lack of live broadcast visibility. In an unusual decision, the NFL chose to delay airing the halftime show, pushing it aside to air a special report on the Gulf War instead. While the game itself was still played as scheduled, the halftime performance was pre-recorded and aired after the game, which significantly reduced its impact. This meant that many viewers missed it altogether, further cementing its status as one of the least memorable halftime shows in Super Bowl history. Critics and audiences alike found the performance dull, uninspired, and poorly suited for the occasion. While New Kids on the Block still had a devoted fan base, their performance lacked the vibrancy and showmanship needed to captivate a Super Bowl audience. The soft, sentimental nature of the show clashed with the excitement of the game, making it one of the most awkwardly mismatched halftime performances ever. Looking back, New Kids on the Block Super Bowl halftime show serves as an example of why the right performer needs to be chosen for the right moment. Instead of delivering a powerful, high-energy spectacle that could appeal to a mass audience, the performance felt outdated, misplaced, and lacking the grandeur expected of a Super Bowl halftime show. It remains one of the most forgettable and least impactful performances in the event's history, proving that even once dominant pop acts can struggle to stay relevant on one of the world's biggest stages. Janet Jackson's infamous performance. Let's rewind to one of the most talked about moments in Super Bowl history, Janet Jackson's 2004 halftime show. The anticipation was electric. Janet, riding high from her successful album, Damita Joe, was going to perform alongside pop sensation Justin Timberlake. Everyone expected a stunning showcase, but nobody was prepared for what unfolded. As the performance kicked off, it was filled with dynamic choreography and impressive visuals. The crowd was buzzing, and viewers at home were glued to their screens, eager to witness this iconic pairing. The energy was palpable, and the show was going according to script, until that fateful moment turned everything upside down. In a split second, the performance took a shocking turn. As Justin Timberlake was finishing his song, he famously pulled away a part of Janet's outfit, exposing a fraction of her wardrobe that was never meant to be seen. Cameras zoomed in, freeze-framing the moment as jaws dropped across the nation. Instant reactions bloomed online and in living rooms alike, as initial shock morphed into confusion, outrage, and intense discussion. The fallout was immediate and staggering. Media outlets exploded with headlines reigniting debates surrounding decency, while audiences were torn between shock and critique. Janet became the face of a scandal that was soon dubbed Nipplegate, and the incident no longer belonged to just a single performance. It echoed in every corner of pop culture. In the aftermath, the repercussions were immense. Janet faced an intense media backlash that unfairly tarnished her image, while the NFL faced substantial fines because of FCC regulations. This event led to drastic changes in live performance policies, leading to increased censorship of performers who dared to push the envelope. Culturally, Nipplegate forced the industry to grapple with complex themes such as censorship and the representation of women in the music scene. At the time, many pondered if Janet's exposure was primarily a blunder or a deliberate act of rebellion against a restricted industry. Despite the negative press and the shadows cast over her career, Janet Jackson persisted. The years that followed saw her rise again, reclaiming her narrative and returning to the stage with resilience. Still, the impact of that one moment lingers, reminding us how a fleeting incident can define a legacy. Reflecting on Janet Jackson's performance, we can see how a single moment can eclipse artistic expression and redefine not just a woman's career, but also a cultural conversation. What do you think about the lasting effects of Nipplegate? Did it change the way performances are viewed forever? In conclusion, the Super Bowl halftime show, while a coveted platform, has seen its fair share of infamous moments. From the Black Eyed Peas' audio misfires to the dramatic fallout of Janet Jackson's unforgettable incident, history shows that not every performance hits the mark. The NFL's choices often spark debate, leaving fans to wonder about the true essence of entertainment at such a high-profile event. Despite the glitz, many performances fall flat, reminding us that fame doesn't always guarantee a memorable show. So, which halftime moment surprised you or left you wanting more? The stage is vast, but the stories behind them are even more captivating.